What if the most powerful thing you could ever do had nothing to do with money, status, or talent? What if the one skill that separates those who thrive from those who simply survive is something nobody ever taught you in school? Today we are talking about something that will change the way you think, the way you feel, and the way you move through this world. We are talking about never losing control. Not control over other people. Not control over circumstances. Control over yourself. Stay with me, because by the end of this, you will never see your emotions, your reactions, or your life the same way again. Every single day you are tested. Someone cuts you off in traffic. Your boss dismisses your idea in front of everyone. A friend betrays your trust. Your plans fall apart at the worst possible moment. And in those seconds, in that razor-thin space between what happens to you and what you do next, your entire life is decided. Most people never realize this. They react. They explode. They shut down. They say things they cannot take back. They make decisions from a place of anger, fear, or desperation. And then they spend weeks, months, sometimes years cleaning up the wreckage. But there is another way to live. There are people walking this earth who have been through storms that would break most of us. They have lost jobs, relationships, health, money. They have been humiliated, betrayed, and knocked flat on their backs. And yet they rise. They stay calm when everything is chaos. They think clearly when everyone else is panicking. They speak with precision when others are screaming. They are not superhuman. They are not emotionless robots. They have simply mastered the one thing that changes everything. They never lose control. This is not a video about suppressing your feelings. This is not about pretending life is perfect or acting like pain does not exist. This is about becoming the kind of person who can feel everything and still choose how to respond. This is about building a version of yourself that cannot be shaken, cannot be manipulated, and cannot be broken by the storms of life. So let us begin. Understanding what control really means. Before anything else, we need to destroy the biggest misconception people have about self-control. Most people think self-control means being cold, emotionless, robotic. They picture someone who never laughs too loud, never cries, never gets angry. Someone who has cut themselves off from the full experience of being human. That is not control. That is suppression. And suppression does not make you stronger. It makes you a ticking time bomb. Real control is something completely different. Real control means you feel everything, but you are not ruled by anything. You feel the anger, but you decide whether to act on it. You feel the fear, but you choose whether to let it stop you. You feel the grief, but you determine how long it will keep you on the floor. The goal is not to feel less. The goal is to respond better. There is a massive difference between the two. Think about the most respected people in your life. The ones you turn to in a crisis. The ones who seem to have a steadiness about them that you admire. They are not people who feel nothing. They are people who have learned to create space between their feelings and their actions. They have learned that emotions are information, not instructions. And that distinction right there is the foundation of everything we're going to talk about today. Control also means taking ownership. It means stopping the habit of blaming your reactions on other people. How many times have you said someone made you angry? Someone made you feel small? Someone ruined your day? The moment you hand someone else the power over your emotional state, you have already lost. Because now your peace depends on how other people behave. And you cannot control other people. You never could. But you can always control yourself. That is where your power is. That is where it has always been. The science of losing control. Let us talk about what is actually happening in your brain and body when you lose control, because understanding the mechanism is the first step to changing it. When you encounter a threat, whether it is physical, emotional, or social, your brain triggers what is called the stress response. Your amygdala, which is the emotional center of your brain, fires a signal that floods your body with adrenaline and cortisol. Your heart rate spikes. Your breathing becomes shallow. Your muscles tense. And here is the critical part. Blood flow is redirected away from your prefrontal cortex, which is the part of your brain responsible for rational thinking, decision-making, and impulse control. In plain language, when you are triggered, you literally become less intelligent. The thinking brain goes offline and the survival brain takes over. This is an ancient system designed to keep you alive when a predator is chasing you. It is extraordinarily effective for physical threats, but it is catastrophic for modern challenges. Your boss is not a lion. Your argument with your partner is not a life or death situation. But your brain does not always know the difference. It responds to emotional threats the same way it responds to physical ones. This is why people say things in arguments they immediately regret. This is why someone who is normally calm and thoughtful can suddenly act in ways that seem completely out of character. It is not weakness. It is biology. The good news is that biology can be trained. Your brain is neuroplastic. It can be rewired. And with consistent practice, you can teach yourself to pause before you react, to choose your response instead of being hijacked by your impulse. This rewiring is not quick. It takes time and intention. But it is absolutely possible. And the people who do this work become forces of nature. The triggers you need to know. If you want to stop losing control, you first need to understand what is triggering you. Because most people are walking around completely unaware of their own triggers. They just know that certain things set them off. Certain people make their blood boil. Certain situations make them freeze or explode. But they have never actually examined why. And without that examination, you cannot change anything. Triggers fall into several categories. There are situational triggers. These are circumstances that reliably destabilize you. Conflict, public criticism, uncertainty, feeling ignored or dismissed, being put under pressure with no warning. There are interpersonal triggers. These are specific types of people or behaviors that get under your skin. The person who constantly interrupts you, the one who dismisses your emotions, the one who makes you feel like you are never enough. There are internal triggers. These are thoughts, memories, or beliefs that activate your stress response from the inside. The memory of a past failure that convinces you that you will fail again. The belief that you are not worthy of respect. The thought that something terrible is about to happen even when there is no evidence for it. Here is the deeper truth about triggers. They almost always point back to something unresolved. When something consistently breaks your composure, it is rarely just about the present moment. It is usually about a wound that has not healed. A belief that was formed in childhood that still governs your reactions as an adult. A loss that was never fully grieved. A boundary that was never set. The work of understanding your triggers is some of the most important inner work you will ever do. Because once you understand where a reaction is coming from, it loses its grip on you. You stop being controlled by something you cannot see. The pause that changes everything. If there is one tool that can immediately begin transforming your life, it is this. The pause. Between stimulus and response, there is a space. And in that space lies your freedom. Learning to find that space, to inhabit it even for a few seconds, can be the difference between a decision that builds your life and one that burns it to the ground. The pause sounds simple, but it is one of the hardest things to actually do in the heat of the moment. Because the pull toward immediate reaction is incredibly powerful. The anger wants to explode right now. The fear wants to run right now. The grief wants to collapse right now. Everything in your nervous system is screaming act immediately. And overriding that signal requires conscious effort. But here is what you practice. Before you speak in an argument, pause. Take one slow breath. Before you send a message you typed in anger, pause. Read it back before you send it. Before you make a major decision in a moment of emotional intensity, pause. Sleep on it. Ask yourself whether you will feel the same way in 24 hours. The pause is not weakness. People mistake silence for weakness all the time. They think the person who reacts the fastest is the most powerful person in the room. They are wrong. The most powerful person in the room is the one who never has to clean up the damage caused by an impulsive reaction. The pause is how warriors think. It is how leaders are made. It is the invisible skill that separates those who create results from those who create chaos. Mastering your emotions without killing them. You cannot control what you do not acknowledge. This is one of the most important principles in emotional mastery. So many people are walking around in a state of emotional denial. They tell themselves they are fine when they are furious. They call their sadness tiredness. They label their grief as stress. And because they never name what they are actually feeling, they can never address it. And what they cannot address will eventually control them. The practice here is radical honesty with yourself. When something upsets you, stop and name it. Actually say to yourself, I am feeling humiliated right now. I am feeling afraid. I am feeling grief. Something about this situation is making me feel invisible, and that is a very old wound for me. This naming process is not weakness. It is precision. It is the beginning of control. Because once you name a feeling, you move it from the unconscious to the conscious. And what is conscious can be directed. What is unconscious will direct you. Equally important is learning to feel your emotions without being consumed by them. There is a practice sometimes called the observer. You step slightly outside of yourself, not to escape the feeling, but to watch it. You notice, there is anger here. There is fear here. You observe it the way you might observe a storm through a window. You are aware of it. You respect its power. But you are not out in it getting soaked. This takes practice. But over time it becomes one of the most stabilizing habits a human being can develop. You stop being your emotions. You start being the person who has them. Discipline as the foundation of freedom. People think discipline and freedom are opposites. They are not. Discipline is the road to freedom. The person who lacks discipline is not free. They are a prisoner of every impulse, every craving, every mood that passes through them. They cannot save money because the urge to spend is too strong. They cannot maintain relationships because the desire to react impulsively keeps destroying them. They cannot build anything lasting because the discomfort of consistency keeps driving them away. But the disciplined person? They are free in ways that most people will never experience. They are free from the consequences of reckless decisions. They are free from the chaos of an undirected life. They are free to build, to create, to grow, without constantly sabotaging themselves. And here is the beautiful irony. The discipline that feels like restriction in the short term is exactly what creates the greatest expansion in the long term. Discipline starts small. It starts with the promises you make to yourself when no one is watching. The morning routine you keep even when you do not feel like it. The food choice you make even when the easier option is right in front of you. The decision to go to sleep instead of scrolling for another hour. Each small act of self-governance is a vote for the person you are becoming. And over time, those votes accumulate into a character that cannot be easily broken because it has been tested and strengthened in 1,000 small moments every single day. What pressure reveals? There is a saying that pressure does not create character. It reveals it. This is one of the most honest things ever said about human nature. Because when life is easy, anyone can appear composed, generous, and strong. It is the hard moments, the moments of real pressure, that show you who you actually are and who you still need to become. Most people run from pressure. They avoid difficult conversations. They quit when things get uncomfortable. They look for the easier path every single time. And because of this, they never discover what they are truly made of. They never develop the deep resilience that only comes from having been tested. They spend their whole lives being managed by circumstances because they never develop the inner strength to manage themselves when circumstances turn dark. The invitation here is to reframe pressure entirely. Instead of seeing it as something to escape, start seeing it as feedback, as training, as the exact environment your character needs to grow stronger. When you are in a conflict and you choose to stay calm, that is a rep. When you receive criticism and instead of collapsing or attacking you listen and extract what is useful, that is a rep. When everything around you is uncertain and you choose to keep working anyway, that is a rep. You are building something. You are constructing, day by day and moment by moment. A self that is genuinely difficult to break. The role of silence. One of the most underrated tools in maintaining control is silence. People are afraid of silence. They fill every gap in conversation with noise. They react to every provocation with words. They answer every accusation immediately. And in doing so, they constantly give away their power. Silence is a form of control. When someone tries to provoke you and you do not react, you deny them what they were looking for. When someone makes an accusation and instead of defending yourself immediately you pause and let the words sit in the air, you force them to sit with what they just said. When you are in a negotiation and the other person makes an offer, the person who speaks first often loses. Silence can be the most powerful thing in the room. But silence is also deeply internal. The practice of quieting the constant noise inside your own mind is one of the highest forms of self-mastery. Most people are never truly quiet. Their thoughts run constantly. They replay conversations. They rehearse arguments. They catastrophize about the future. And that mental noise is exhausting. It drains your energy, clouds your judgment, and keeps you in a state of low-level anxiety that makes it much harder to stay in control when life actually demands it. Learning to be still internally, whether through meditation, prayer, time in nature, or deliberate moments of reflection, is not a luxury. It is a necessity if you want to operate at the highest level. People who test your control. Let us talk about the people in your life who seem specifically designed to make you lose control. Because everyone has them. The colleague who takes credit for your work. The family member who knows exactly which buttons to press. The friend who is somehow always in crisis and always draining your energy. The stranger online who says something so wrong and so inflammatory that every fiber of your being wants to respond. Here is the truth about people who provoke you. Their behavior is about them. It almost always is. The person who tries to humiliate you publicly is doing so because something in them is deeply insecure. The person who constantly criticizes you is usually projecting their own self-criticism outward. The person who tries to destabilize you is usually unsettled themselves. Understanding this does not mean excusing bad behavior. It means you stop taking it personally in a way that hijacks your response. You also need to make honest assessments about who you allow close to you. Proximity is influence. The people you spend the most time with are shaping your emotional state, your beliefs, your habits, and your level of self-control, whether you realize it or not. Someone who constantly creates chaos in your life is not just an inconvenience. They are a drain on the energy you need to maintain your composure in the moments that matter. Protecting your peace sometimes means creating distance from people who consistently destroy it. That is not coldness. That is wisdom. Rebuilding after you lose control. Here is something important that nobody talks about enough. You will lose control sometimes. No matter how much you grow, no matter how much you practice, there will be moments when the pressure is too great, the wound is too fresh, or the exhaustion is too deep, and you will react in a way you are not proud of. This is not failure. This is being human. What matters is not that you lost control. What matters is what you do next. Do you spiral into shame and self-criticism, which only destabilizes you further? Or do you take a breath, examine what happened honestly, repair what needs to be repaired, and return to your foundation? The strongest people are not the ones who never fall. They are the ones who have developed the art of returning. Returning to their values. Returning to their composure. Returning to the version of themselves they are working to become. Accountability without self-destruction. That is the balance. You own your mistake fully. You do not make excuses. You do not deflect blame. But you also do not use it as evidence that you are fundamentally broken or incapable of change. You use it as information. You ask yourself what triggered you, what the pattern is, and what you can do differently next time. And then you get back up and keep building. Daily practices that build unbreakable composure. Everything we have talked about today is not theory. It is practice. And like any practice, it has to be lived daily to become real. So let us talk about what you can actually do starting today to build the kind of composure that makes you impossible to break. Start your day with intention. Before the noise of the world reaches you, before the phone, the emails, the demands, take even 5 minutes to sit with yourself. Set your intention for the day. Ask yourself how you want to show up. Remind yourself of your values and of the person you are committed to becoming. This small act creates a foundation that makes it much harder for the day to knock you off balance. Move your body. Physical discipline and emotional control are deeply connected. People who exercise consistently are not just physically stronger. They are more emotionally regulated. The practice of pushing through physical discomfort builds the same mental muscle that allows you to pause before reacting, to persist when things are hard, to endure what lesser discipline cannot. Move every day. Not because you have to, because it is part of who you are becoming. Reflect at the end of each day. Look back honestly. Where did you maintain your composure today? Where did you lose it? What triggered you and why? What would you do differently? This daily reflection is not about criticism. It is about refinement. The person who examines their day honestly grows faster than anyone who simply moves from one day to the next on autopilot. Guard your inputs. What you consume shapes who you are. The content you watch, the news you follow, the conversations you engage in, all of it is either building your composure or eroding it. Constant exposure to outrage, negativity, and conflict trains your nervous system to stay in a state of low-level alarm. Choose your inputs like your peace of mind depends on it. Because it does. The identity of an unbreakable person. Everything we have talked about today ultimately comes down to identity. Not just the practices, not just the techniques, but the decision about who you are. Because behavior follows identity. You do not rise to the level of your goals. You fall to the level of your identity. And if your identity is someone who loses control, no amount of technique will save you in the moments that matter most. So the deepest work is this: deciding that you are someone who does not lose control. Not because life never tests you. Not because you are perfect. But because it is who you have chosen to be. When you begin to move from doing self-control practices to being a person of composure, everything changes. You no longer have to fight yourself to pause before reacting. You pause because that is what you do. You no longer have to force yourself to stay calm under pressure. Staying calm is simply part of your character. This identity does not appear overnight. It is built in every small choice, every quiet moment of discipline, every time you chose the harder right thing over the easier wrong thing. It accumulates. And one day you look back and realize that the person you used to be, the one who was easily triggered, easily manipulated, easily broken, is not who you are anymore. You have become something more. Something steady. Something that endures. Never losing control is not about being invincible. It is not about having no bad days. It is not about pretending life is not sometimes brutal, unfair, and heartbreaking. It is about something quieter and more profound than all of that. It is about the decision to be the author of your responses rather than the victim of your reactions. It is about choosing, in the space between what happens and what you do, to be who you truly are. And who you truly are is someone capable of extraordinary strength, extraordinary patience, and extraordinary grace. The world will keep testing you. People will provoke you. Plans will fall apart. Loss will come. Uncertainty will not go away. But none of that has to break you, because you have something that cannot be taken. You have control over yourself. And with that, you have everything. If this video spoke to something in you, if it gave you one thought or one tool that you know you needed to hear today, do one thing right now. Subscribe to this channel. Every single week, content goes out that is designed to help you think clearer, stand stronger, and live with more intention and purpose. This community is built for people who are serious about growth. If that is you, you belong here. Subscribe now and never miss what comes next.